Last time on D&D featuring Calliope Laurelleaf, the Halfling Bard, Ellie Jobel, the Gnome Ranger Rogue, Phelan, the High Elf Cleric, Talarin, the Wood Elf Ranger, Trogdor, the Dragonborn Barbarian, Torpo, the Hill Dwarf Wizard, and Alaric Lysane, the Human Fighter. Celebrating their recent acquisition of coin, listen to Session 8 if you haven't already. From their previous adventure, the party takes a moment to tell the other two, Talarin and Trogdor, who were not there, about the chaos that ensued at this party. Ulbrod Greenshell, the owner of the Shell-Shock Tavern, and also one of the guests that had been at the party, allows the party here to drink for a day, pretty much for free, as a means of thanking them for their role in helping reveal who Marcus truly was. As the party drinks and enjoys the day, Calliope spots a familiar face in the crowd. Thyre Moonglade, the High Elf whom she had shared a very intimate moment with. Thyre also happens to spot Calliope as well, and they make eye contact, and he slowly makes his way through the crowd to her. He smiles warmly, remembering that moment in the library that they had shared together, and after a moment his face flushes red with embarrassment as he realizes he's not actually said anything yet. He clears his throat. Calliope, it's good to see you again. He engaged in general chatter for several minutes, also going over the unusual events from the party several nights ago. After a moment, he finally looks comfortable, but then his expression grows serious. My wife, he pauses. Ella, she has left and taken one of my paintings. He looks at Calliope and adds, It's the one you saw me painting when you first walked into my store. It was a painting of the waterfalls of Westbrook. It's a painting of our old home. We left about a year ago, shortly after the events that triggered an unusual wizard to come into our town named Boris Den. He hired several people in our town to build him a wizard's tower just outside of the town. He quickly took residence in the tower, and once it was complete, he took a liking, for lack of a better word, to an elf maiden from our hometown named Aerie Moonstone. However, Aerie was already in a relationship with Martel Starborn. Boris Den thought he was the better man, much wiser than a brutish strength of Martel. He decided to challenge Martel, and despite cheating by trying to use poison on Martel, he still lost. Then, Martel disappeared. Everyone suspected Boris had something to do with it, but he would never answer the door to his tower when inquired, and none of us were comfortable trying to break into a mad wizard's tower. It wasn't long before Aerie disappeared next. Several days later, the tower itself exploded. The land around the tower began to change. Fruit died, grass died, people grew inexplicably ill. Everyone left Westbrook because they believed it was cursed. Ella and I settled in Ridgecrest. We had no intention of staying long, but we never left. I would like you to find her, ensure she's safe. The party inquires where Ella might have gone. Thyre suspects that she has probably returned to Westbrook, which is south of Ridgecrest. The party asks why she left, and he explains again that they do love each other, but they've not been in love for a very long time. Additionally, he admits that he also revealed the intimate moment that he shared with Calliope. Ellie Jobel heads to Low Ridge to look for the Thieves Guild. She finds the signs and follows it to an abandoned inn with 3 large barrels, but can't tell which of the barrels is the right one to use as the doorway. She knows that the other 2 are probably trapped. Ellie returns to High Ridge. She recruits Calliope to go with her back down to Low Ridge. Together they're able to determine the correct barrel and both enter the Thieves Guild. They discover that the Thieves Guild is called the Black Swan. The guild is also apparently run by were-rats, or what they prefer to be called as ratlings. There's a small bazaar inside the Thieves Guild where Ellie picks up some poisons, while Calliope finds a magical mask that allows her to basically take anyone's face for up to 10 times, called the Mask of Arya. This is naturally a Game of Thrones reference when Game of Thrones was the shiz. And there's also something that she picks up called a zombie potion, which the were-rat explains. You apply it to yourself and it emits such a foul odor that it deceives the zombie's sense of smell, and they assume that you're undead. It basically masks your fleshy, fresh meat kind of smell. In the meantime, Twerpo identifies the Lion Mane shield that Talarin got back in the cave. It is a +1 shield. There seems to be another attribute to the shield, but she's not able to determine what it might be. Because of the heavy foot traffic around Ridgecrest, a major city and a major hub, tracking Ella around Ridgecrest where she might have gone is virtually impossible. The party decides to simply head south towards Westbrook and see if they're able to find any evidence of Ella along the way. During their first night at camp, Phelan takes the first guard and hears a loud thumping, as if something with very heavy footfalls was approaching. She awakens the others and climbs up a tree and spots what appears to be a two-headed giant. It is an Ettin. She warns the party and Calliope casts a spell to cover their scent and throws off the Ettin. During his watch, Talaran abandons the others to track the Ettin to make sure it doesn't circle its way back to them. Because no one is there to keep watch while the others sleep, a wandering Grick from a nearby ruin stumbles upon what looks to be a free meal. The party is awakened as their Grick attacks, and the party does manage to quickly dispatch the young creature. Fury said it seemed that Talaran had abandoned his post during his watch. Torpo took the deceased Grick and stuffed it into Talaran's bedroll. By the time Talaran had come back, it looked as if something or someone was sleeping inside his bedroll, and he decided to begin beating it until something oozed out of the bedroll, which happened to be a small animal that was the Grick's last meal. Talaran decided at this point to just burn the bedroll once he realized what was actually inside the bedroll. The following morning, the party continues their journey south. They finally reach an area where the ground is a fine gray soot, and all the trees appear as if they've been burned or charred black, as if a massive fire had swept through the area. The party eventually makes camp once again, and after some debate decides that even though Talaran has offered to take one of the watches, someone should partner up with him in the event he decides to go track something. Twerpo, who is untrusting of elves in general, decides to take the watch. During Talaran's watch, he hears something and spots a wagon coming from the south. It's a simple wagon with two people in the front being pulled by a single horse. Curious since they're coming from the same direction as Westbrook and traveling through an area that seemed pretty desolate and untraveled, he approached the wagon and hailed the two riders. He speaks with them and eventually asking where they're coming from, and he sees they both seem to tense up. They do answer that they're coming back from Westbrook after dropping something off. Talaran notices one of the humans seems to be slowly going for his dagger. Feeling threatened, the violence escalates quickly as Talaran draws his rapier and manages to sever the head of the passenger, but this gives the rider a chance to strike him with two thrown daggers, both of which are poisoned and paralyze Talaran. Twerpo, seeing all of this unfold, curses to herself and awakens the others. To her, and the surprise of the others, except for maybe Ellie and Calliope, the driver of the wagon changes his form and leaps from the wagon, taking on a humanoid rat-like appearance. Trogdor and Alaric rush to Talaran's side and pull the were-rat off of Talaran. Talaran recovers from the poison, and with the group effort, the were-rat is eventually killed. Trogdor spots a torn piece of cloth on one of the nails in the back of the wagon and notes it appears to be from a woman's dress. Perhaps Ella's, the party concludes. Talaran skins the were-rats with the intention of one day making a magical cloak with some of the skins he's been collecting. They decide to take over the were-rats wagon and turn it around to head south again. By the third day, they're able to see Westbrook, and from their vantage point can see that it's indeed a ghost town. The buildings are in various states of disarray, windows are smashed, and more strangely, many zombies seem to just be aimlessly roaming around the town. Talaran, along with the rest of the party, conclude that the zombies must be working with the were-rats. Talaran dons on the were-rat skin that he had just skinned, along with some disguise kit from Calliope to make Talaran look more were-ratish. Talaran scouts the destroyed tower area, which notices that the zombies seem to keep their distance. He also spots what appears to be a wet woman's footprints, which could be Ella's, since the Westbrook Lake isn't far away. When none of the zombies seem to go after him, he returns to the party and develops a new plan. Talaran, still disguised as a were-rat, will pull the wagon. The others get in the back and pull a blanket over them and pour the zombie juice that Calliope got and hide under it. This will mask the scent so that Talaran can just pull them to the tower. Unfortunately, the party has guessed incorrectly. The were-rats never went into Westbrook. Whoever or whatever the drop-off was done at a distance, and the zombies lunge for Talaran since he's the only one that they can actually smell. This causes the horse to panic, and it rips the reins right out of Talaran's hands and pulls the party towards the town of Westbrook, which is actually further away from the tower. Ellie, who has some skill in animal handling, climbs out from beneath the blanket now that their plan has gone awry and grabs the reins. She successfully turns the beat-up wagon around and brings the wagon barreling down towards Talaran, who is trying to fight off hordes of zombies around him. Trogdor extends his hand and manages to catch Talaran's free hand, and Talaran successfully holds on as he's pulled into the wagon. Going too fast, Ellie tries to ease the wagon to a soft turn as they reach the edge of the destroyed tower, but the faulty wheel snaps and the wagon capsizes, sending everyone flying out towards the tower. Interestingly enough, the zombies all stop at a certain point, as if there was an invisible barrier stopping them from entering the sundered tower. Talaran enters the sundered tower, surprised how expansive it was beneath. A hall, 40 feet wide and 60 feet long, seems to open up beneath the tower. To his surprise, a large circular creature with a large center eye and 4 eye stalks turns at the corner. It is a spectator. Not recognizing the party, the spectator launches an attack. Talaran moves into the room to allow the others to come down into the hallway, and the party quickly dispatches the spectator, having all passed the saving throws against the magical creature's attack. The noise, however, draws the attention of a shadow demon who has long since served Boris, demanding who dares enter the Master's Tower. The party knows a fight is about to happen, but instead, the shadow demon opens a portal and summons forth 2 hellhounds, before disappearing into the darkness itself. Trogdor tries to breathe fire on them and discovers, yep, they're 100% immune to fire. Torpo thunderwaves the pair of hellhounds, killing one that had been injured during the party's attack. The party then manages to kill off the second hellhound. Trogdor breaks off several teeth to use as a necklace. The party checks the hall to the left and finds a steel locked door. They check the hall to the right and also find another steel locked door. Moving down to the next hall on the left, there's another locked steel door. To the far right, they find a wooden locked door. Ellie is able to examine the lock and finds that there is no trap on the wooden door, but she's not able to pick the lock. Trogdor simply goes over there and kicks down the door, and the room seems to have been a prison for a woman. There's a bed with shackles, a closet with women's clothing, and all of which looks as it's not been used for a very long time. Going back to the furthest left door, Ellie spots a trap on the lock, but the party has nothing to basically disarm it. Trogdor simply grabs a shield and smashes down the door, taking the brunt of the magical hit, and what they find inside stuns them. It appears to be a large phylactery, which is something used by one of the most powerful of the undead, a lich. Though most of the phylacteries are small charms used to store souls, this was large, almost scientific-like, with glass tubes and energies of souls passing through it in an endless cycle. Leaving that room, they went to the other room, closest to the stairs, just to the right, and found a torture chamber. Clearly, Boris Den was more than just a powerful wizard. These were things that proved he was undoubtedly a lich, or at least practicing to become one. Going to the door to the left, closest to the stairs, the steel door was also set with a magical trap. Once again, Trogdor braced himself behind his shield, charged. However, this time as he impacted against the door, he let his shield slip ever so slightly, which allowed him to be hit with a necrotic trap and siphoned some life from him. But he did manage to knock the door down in the process. In the room was a shimmering portal, where 2 dragon heads came together at the top of a ornate portal. The party concludes that closing this door was probably the best option, and attempted to lock it, but unfortunately Trogdor slamming into it broke the lock. The party made their way down to a final door at the end of the hall and opened the door and saw what appeared to be a man, a warrior by the looks of it. Once human, now he was something else, and he magically summoned 2 swords to his side. It became clear that this was undoubtedly Martel Starborn, and where he was once human, he was now a wight. Alaric managed to disarm one of Martel's swords. When Trogdor picked it up, a sense of great evil washed over him. He failed a saving throw and lunged to attack Alaric. Ellie manages to lace one of her arrows with paralytic poison, which Trogdor fails to save against, and he falls. Martel closes his eyes, and suddenly the sound of 1,000 zombies outside the tower could be heard, and the party knew he was calling them to help. Ellie ran back to the phylactery, believing that the souls of the zombies were inside that phylactery, and she smashed it. Rather than the souls escaping to freedom, they all entered her body as if she was a lightning rod. Then suddenly she could hear 1,000 voices screaming in her head. She rushed back to the others still fighting Martel and cried out for help, but no one seemed to hear her except for Torpo. Ellie realizes that the portal might be the answer. She tried to run back to it, but the zombies had shambled into the hallway. One of the zombies managed to grab her. However, at that moment, the others who had been fighting Martel managed to defeat him. This somehow seemed to be a off switch to the zombies, who then suddenly became non-responsive. They didn't move, they didn't do anything, they simply just stood there. Alaric recovered the 2 swords and heard the same voice that Trogdor had, but he did not succumb to the evil. This could be explained that because Trogdor was already evil in alignment, the swords appealed to him. A necromancy book was also recovered that belonged to Boris Den. Ellie was then able to return to the portal room where she released the souls into the portal. The party ponders what became of Ella. Trogdor goes back to the wagon and gives that torn piece of dress to Bubbles to try to pick up the scent. Bubbles, excited, leads them to the beach, but stops short looking out into the water. The party moves closer and a sea hag emerges. A fight breaks out with the sea hag and it's defeated. After its demise, Ella's body floats out of the water to the top. She had been drowned, a victim of the sea hag. Turpo, who was familiar with magic and knew something about hags, knew that the sea hag could have been a part of a coven. She also knows that hags tend to hate anything beautiful, and the sea hag undoubtedly lured Ella closer to the edge of the lake and pulled her in so that she could drown her. The party recovers Ella's body and puts it in the wagon and takes it back to Ridgecrest so that Thyre can give her a proper burial. He pays each of them 200 gold. And that concludes that session of D&D. Some of the side notes that I just wanted to mention is the events of the exploding Tower of Westbrook were a part of another party's adventure that happened a few years previously. I'd been DMing for my best friend and his wife, their kids, my wife, and they had actually gone and did this adventure that led with Boris and Ares and Martel and stuff like that, trying to discover what happened. The reason for the original tower's explosion is that Boris's imp grew jealous of Boris Den's infatuation with Ares. While Boris Den did indeed dabble in necromancy and torture and other things of great evil, during this time he abducted Martel after being defeated in combat by him and tortured him. Ares promised Boris if she let Martel go, and if Boris could change his ways, she promised to love him, or at least try. Boris lied and said he freed Martel, but he knew if he did, Martel would come after him and kill him, so there was no way he was going to let Martel go. He simply left Martel in the torture room to starve. What Boris did not account for is several things. Just before Martel died a painful death of starvation, he called out to any god, devil, or demon who would hear him, and pleaded for a chance to extract his revenge against Boris. He was granted his wish to become a wight by a demon who had grown furious that Boris had turned away from the dark magic to court a woman. As a part of the backstory for this leg of the adventure, it came to me that the same demon who granted Martel this ability to become a wight was also the same demon who implanted the idea in the imp's head to kill Boris with the explosion. The imp successfully killed Boris and Ares in the tower's explosion, which left Martel, who was now a wight seeking vengeance against Boris, the inability to actually ever complete his task. Later, another party would ironically end up at this destroyed tower for another reason and encounter the imp. But we'll get to that eventually. The zombies are from the potential robbers who came down into the tower in hopes of recovering some magical items and died at the hands of Martel, as anyone who dies by a wight rises up as a zombie under his command. The spectator was actually left over from Boris's time when he was alive, as mages often use spectators as guards for their magical items, such as a soul portal or a phylactery. The sea hag was there, drawn by the tragedy it sensed with Martel, who had become a wight and had no way to complete his mission. She happened to see Ella, who was skirting the zombies near the water, and fell prey to the sea hag. Quick side note that both Ellie and Calliope failed a perception check while they were in Low Ridge, the Thieves Guild, with the Black Swan to spot the waterfall painting that was actually there at the bazaar. Ella had stolen the waterfall painting to use it as barter in Low Ridge with the Were-Rats to get her passage to Westbrook, her old home and perhaps the last time she was ever truly happy before the tower had exploded.